Our next speaker is no exception to that. In fact, her resume could probably fill most of that packet. Diane Galusha of the Catskill Watershed Corporation does so many things for the communities that we couldn't possibly represent here. But today, of course, she will be speaking to you from her position as Director of Education and Communications at the Catskill Watershed Corporation. And along the same lines that Paul spoke of, the CWC is a major asset to the area. It employs about 30 people, and that's very important. They're located in a hamlet, and Diane will tell us about all their programs. Also, at this point in this program, we're making a shift a little bit here. We're moving from what I would call place-based discussions or presentations, and then we're moving towards technical assistance. And Diane's presentation has a little of both. It's a local organization that has all kinds of assistance, and then that will be followed by the Association of Towns, who's located in Albany and is purely assistance, but it's not based here. So with that, please welcome Diane. Thank you for coming, Diane.
Thanks for having me. I have to point out that we don't have 30 people, we have more like 20, actually more like 19. And when you see the scope and breadth of our programs, it kind of amazes me sometimes that we can accomplish and take on what we do so effectively with such a relatively small staff. So the Catskill Watershed Corporation actually has kind of a twofold purpose. One is to protect water quality. This is one small lake. This is beautiful Tunis Lake in Andes. And obviously, of course, the water supply for a lot of people. But there's a lot of little streams and ponds that we're also concerned about. But we're also, I dare say, maybe our most important goal is to preserve communities in the Catskill, Delaware, New York City watershed. The west of Hudson watershed, that is. This shows the source of the water, one of the sources of the water for many millions of people. We are always mindful of the people who depend upon us at the other end of the pipe, and Paul gave a wonderful overview of this system. I see that he has the amount that's used is 1.1 billion gallons. I'm going to have to update my figures, but if you do go to the DP website, there is a daily accounting of how much is used per day, and in many days it's really like 1 billion gallons. So they've done a lot of work over the last 20 years to seal up the leaks and make the system a bit more efficient. So this is just to answer the comment that was made by the gentleman from Marbletown. We also need to remind people that not only 8 million residents and visitors in New York City depend on this water, but 1 million people upstate as far as Marbletown and the folks up in Ulster County. But the people who live along the two primary aqueducts, the Delaware and the Catskill aqueducts, are allowed to purchase New York City water by law, and many of them do. This is the area where the Catskill Watershed works, the west of Hudson, Catskill, Delaware watershed, New York City watershed, 1,600 square miles, and 6 reservoirs. 90% of New York City's water, although I may have to update that too. Paul indicated that the Croton system is used very rarely now these days, and I'm going to have to follow up with him a little bit about that and see whether maybe you were supplying 98% of New York City's water from this side of the river. And this is you representing communities in this watershed. 5 counties, 41 towns, 8 villages. You can't get away from a talk with me without a couple of historic pictures, so I'm just going to back up and tell you a little bit about where we came from very, very briefly. Obviously, this water system is an incredible marvel that really has been under construction and development almost continuously since the city took on the job back in the 1830s of providing water to its constituents. In the West of Hudson watershed, this process required the removal or relocation of 26 communities over the period of 1905 to about 1965. This is a vacated Cannonsville. This was the community of Cannonsville that was claimed for, one of 5 communities claimed for the Cannonsville Reservoir. And this is what those towns looked like once they were demolished to make way for water. 5,500 people were displaced between this period. This is Darrell Atkin, proprietor of Atkins General Store in Shavertown. And so you can imagine the residue of bitterness and resentment and mistrust that was left in the watershed by the city's construction of its vast water system. And this was a legacy that had to be overcome when during the 1990s, when there was a very long, protracted period of negotiations for the New York City Watershed Agreement. In 1990, when the DEP proposed stringent watershed land use rules to avoid the mandate by the federal EPA that surface water supplies be filtered, it definitely triggered a reaction, to say the least. I don't know if you can see this T-shirt. It says, "Carrying a load for New York City Water, diapered cow." The farmers were kind of the first to sort of get up in arms. Maybe not the first, but certainly a loud contingent. And they basically secured their own agreement with New York City, a voluntary farm management and benefit program that has worked incredibly well for the last, well, like 18 years or something like that. The communities, the elected officials and municipal folks took that lead and ran with it and negotiated. I'll spare you the gory details. Maybe if you want to ask Alan later, you can find out what went on for 6 years when the non-agricultural issues were thrashed out. But suffice it to say that the Memorandum of Agreement was signed in 1997 under the leadership of Governor George Pataki. And this involved the environmental communities, the state, the federal government, the local communities under the guise of the Coalition of Watershed Towns, and regional organizations. So through the MOA, the city got 3 things. The EPA granted the city a 5-year filtration waivers to avoid filtering its huge Catskill, Delaware supply. That has subsequently been removed a couple of times, and renewed a couple of times, and it's effective through 2017. The Department of Health allowed the imposition of new, though somewhat softened, regulations in the watershed, softened from their original intent. Their original. Originally, they were a lot. They proposed much tougher regulations, and then the DEC then gave the city, or the New York State gave the city, a permit to acquire vacant land from willing buyers. No condemnation or eminent domain allowed in this acquisition process, and that was pretty key to the whole agreement, that condemnation is banned in the watershed. The city cannot use eminent domain to acquire land. The MOA also requires the DEP to fund water quality protection programs in the Catskill, Delaware watershed, and that's where we come in. Let me tell you about a few of our programs, and I'll go kind of quickly. I did bring information about our programs on the back table and business cards if you have any further questions you want to ask specific staff members about any of these programs and how they might benefit your community and your constituents. Our community wastewater management program basically is in business to help address wastewater problems in very specific communities. In the MOA, there were 22 communities who were identified as being in need of some kind of wastewater treatment solutions. The top 7, they were prioritized, and the top 7 were dealt with directly by New York City in conjunction with those communities. The 15 through 22 are being addressed through the Community Wastewater Management Program, and you can see some of those that we've already dealt with and are in the process of working with. This is the new wastewater treatment plant in Boyceville, and you can see how critical it is to control wastewater in a community so near the Esopus Creek, which is just upstream, stone's throw from the Ashokan Reservoir. And these are some of the places that now are now connected to this municipally owned treatment plant and system, wastewater system. All of these individual septic tanks will have been decommissioned and everybody is now hooked up to this system. So it's kind of an efficiency of scale. These folks will no longer have to worry about replacing a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 septic system down the line. Ashland is they're installing those laterals as we speak in Ashland. That's this is a little bit different system. This is a sand filter building. It's not a full-blown wastewater treatment plant as it is in Boyceville. And in Delancey, we took a different tack. This is the homes and businesses there are being dealt with under a septic maintenance district arrangement where everybody's system gets pumped out and inspected on a regular rotating basis and repaired as needed. So there's no treatment plant there. Our regular septic programs are for residences. We pay 100% of the cost of repairing, replacing septic systems, residential on-site septic systems for full-time residents, and 60% of the cost is covered for part-time residents. And obviously these are systems that are within 200 feet of a water course. So we have been expanding the universe of septic systems that we've been covering. It started at 50 feet from water course, and now we're up to 250 feet. This program employs a lot of engineers, a lot of contractors. It is a huge stimulus for the economy in our area. 3,756 systems have been repaired, replaced, or managed to date. That's as of the end of November. We have a small business septic program as well, which pays a portion of the repairs required for businesses. We also have a septic maintenance program where it's basically an attempt to get people to take care of their system so that they last longer and we don't have to do these expensive repairs and replacements. As you can see, we've done several hundred of those to date. Stormwater programs are also a big part of what we do, trying to reduce runoff and the associated water quality problems from impervious surfaces. So we have programs to that mostly are the stormwater retrofit program is to take care of existing problems, and that's a program that's largely utilized by municipalities. The future stormwater program is a reimbursement program for new construction to help folks meet stormwater control requirements for new construction. We also have planning and assessment grants that many municipalities have availed themselves of. This is an example of a huge stormwater program project that we did at Windham Mountain, 16 acres, terraced parking lot, retention pond, which is actually used for snowmaking at the ski center. This was done in conjunction with a number of other agencies, including Soil and Water. But this is more the kind of project that you're likely to see in your municipalities. You can see the incredible difference in the before and after picture here, which not only takes water quality into consideration, but also just safety and maintenance issues that municipalities are quite concerned with. Here's another example in Fleischmann's of a undersized kind of a culvert under disrepair and then replaced with this concrete culvert. Other stormwater projects that have been completed recently, we've done a number of planning and assessment, funded a number of those, which helps municipalities prioritize the stormwater programs and projects that they want to kind of focus on in the future. And then our construction program, stormwater retrofit program, can help to fund those that are listed on those priority sheets. We have funded almost 40 sand and salt storage facilities, actually just 39 constructed for municipalities in the first 5 years or so of our existence. Now we have a program available to institutions, schools, hospitals, and camps. And we have finished a sand and salt shed for Delaware Valley Hospital in Walton. There's another in Frost Valley that's under design. The Catskill Fund for the Future, as I mentioned, is our big economic development program. We have distributed over $48 million, in ready loans to date. A number of other initiatives include the historic structure rehabilitation of the Delaware Inn in Stamford, the Green Concierge project for hospitality businesses. The Catskill Studies Fund has funded a number of studies, including the Cannonsville Boating Pilot Project and the Catskill Grass Bioenergy Project. The Watershed Education, Job Creation, and Energy Conservation Initiative is a series of 4 projects in 4 counties. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of those. These are some of our loan recipients. The Roxbury Motel, Canal Street Cutlery in Ellenville, that's Tractor Supply Store in Delhi. So you can see these run the gamut. We have assisted a number of arts and culture organizations, retail firms, restaurants, hotels, small industry, the Maverick Health Center in Boyceville, which unfortunately, soon after they renovated this wonderful new structure, they were flooded pretty badly. So I guess, have they reopened? Does anybody know? I think they have. But obviously you can see they employ a lot of people. So all of these businesses, though they're small, collectively employ a lot of people, and those loans have leveraged an additional $76 million in private and funds, their own equity, and from other lending institutions, and have saved or created more than 1,000 jobs. This is the revitalized Delaware Inn, where the Catskill Watershed Corporation just had its board and committee meetings on Tuesday. This was a dilapidated, historic inn on Main Street in Stamford, and it was the pilot project for a program that we had hoped would serve as, the stimulus for downtown development, if we could find these historic structures to renew and bring back to commercial viability. So this is we took the opportunity to utilize some sustainable energy principles here. This has solar power and geothermal energy sources. And it's for sale. So if you know anybody who wants to invest in a wonderful, almost turnkey property, they have to furnish it and decorate it to their liking. But it has 19 guest rooms, a ballroom, a dining room, 2 breakout rooms, a lounge, a caterer's kitchen, and it has a little suite on the 3rd floor, which would be great for a caretaker or a proprietor to live there. The Green Concierge Project is actually they're having a reception here at Bel Air next Tuesday, for the participating businesses, mostly hotels, bed and breakfasts, who have committed themselves to documenting waste reduction through recycling, resource reduction, like water and limiting water and paper use and other supplies, replacement of chemicals with more environmentally benign cleaning supplies and others, and training employees in how best to manage a more sustainable business. So we are trying to support this and promote these businesses that really represent the future of hospitality in the Catskills. This is a group from the, I think, Deposit Central School out on the Cannonsville Reservoir. We hope to see more of that. I was happy to hear Paul say that there will be an announcement in the not too distant future about expanding this project or this program to other reservoirs. My son is already looking on Craigslist for a sailboat for the Papacton, so I hope I can bring him some good news. 871 boaters used the Cannonsville over the last 3 years. The Grass Bioenergy Project is an interesting one too. Basically, the intent was to provide landowners, farmers, and other landowners with an economic kind of another revenue source to be able to sell the grass off and the hay off their land, to be pelletized and used as fuel. And it has been very successful so far. In addition to those institutions and the town of Hunter that you see pictured here, interior and exterior boilers, pellet burning boilers, have also been installed in Andes, Franklin, at the Ashokan Center, in the town of Jewett, and soon we hope at the Catskill Watershed Corporation. The Education, Job Creation, and Energy Conservation Initiative was an attempt to spur community development projects that created jobs and also conserved energy. So $250,000 was given to each of 4 projects. The Daniel Pierce Library, shown here in Grahamsville, was one of them. And they installed a wonderful geothermal system and did some other improvements. We also gave these folks a grant to do, an education grant to do a permanent watershed and water system exhibit there in the museum that's a part of the library. This is the Mountaintop Library and Learning Center in Tannersville, which is under redevelopment right now. We did windows, energy efficient windows, roof, insulation there. The Ashokan Center is building a new campus out of the Esopus Valley, which is used as a release channel now for more and more frequently from the Ashokan Reservoir by New York City. So the DEP owns that valley property and is also helping to relocate the campus to higher ground. We also supported the Margaretville E-Center under this initiative. Our public education program gives grants to schools and nonprofits to get kids outdoors, get them excited about nature, and especially about water. We also love to see service learning projects. These are students from Gilboa Central School planting hundreds of trees and shrubs along the Schoharie Creek in Hunter. This is actually a Catskill Center employee, Meredith, who was doing a Streamwatch program for Delhi 3rd graders. Since 1998, the CWC has awarded 377 grants totaling $1,885,000. Our local technical assistance program is no longer awarding grants, but we basically awarded 30 grants over the 5 years that the program was active. There are still some projects underway, including this economic revitalization plan for the towns of Middletown, Roxbury, Andes, and the villages of Margaretville and Fleischman's. That's not been completed yet. You know, when the CWC was envisioned and established under the terms of the MOA, there were very specific programs that were itemized that we would be responsible for, never envisioning many of the special projects and programs that we have ultimately established and we have ultimately come to be known for. One of those is the Catskills Local Government Day, which was mentioned earlier. Alan mentioned it, and we hope that you will participate this next fall in 2012. Usually it's in September, early October. We have conducted a pharmaceuticals collection program from nursing homes and hospitals when these facilities were challenged by the state about their disposal practices. We initiated a group to come up with an operational model for Bel Air Mountain Ski Center when it was threatened with cuts and closures, and I hesitate to ask where that is actually at this point, but what the status of that is. But it was certainly an interesting discussion and a valuable one. We have given stormwater and septic workshops for engineers, contractors, and agency personnel, and as Alan mentioned, in March 22nd, in Margaretville, we will be doing training, disaster response training for public officials. And I did bring a clipboard, and it's on the back table if you are interested in attending this or in receiving our monthly e-newsletter. Please sign up and give us your email. More special projects. The commemorative project, the kiosks were mentioned. We established 6 kiosks, one at each of the New York City reservoirs, and road signs for lost communities so that people will always remember the sacrifice that was made by west of Hudson communities for New York City's water. We give watershed tours all the time for visiting water and wastewater professionals and policymakers. Many of them come from abroad. The New York City water system and watershed and this whole system of payment for ecosystem services is under a microscope around the world, and we host visitors from all over the world. We just received a request this week from a delegation from Brazil, which will be coming in February. We've also developed some of the smaller, lesser known and often under the radar projects, developed access parking areas for New York City, recreational lands, and we give special support to events that highlight water quality and try to get people to appreciate and celebrate this wonderful resource. This beautiful region is underutilized, and we have been attempting through a new website that's kind of subtitled "The Best of Both Worlds." Google it and go visit and see where that takes you. There's an incredible amount of resources there, and basically funnels everyone down to the county levels, to county TPAs, tourist promotional agencies, to see where they might go to visit in the Catskills. We have also supported the Central Catskills Collaborative, 7 municipalities cooperating to enhance economic activity and promotion for everyone. They're working together so that not just their communities, but everyone along this wonderful gateway to the Catskills can benefit. I do want to tell you just briefly about our new the Stream Corridor Protection Program. This actually was established a few years ago in the wake of the 2006 floods. We basically funded 13 projects to reduce or prevent downstream flood damage. But obviously, the landscape has changed once again, and flood debris deposited by Irene and Lee this past summer poses a new threat to life and property. So the program has been amended and refunded to provide for select stream debris removal projects in the watershed. This is $2.5 million. Basically, this was approved by our board on Tuesday. The CWC will fund debris removal and reclamation projects in stream channels and floodplains. Towns, villages, property owners, individual property owners, or county soil and water conservation districts are eligible to apply for these costs that are not covered by FEMA or NRCS. The CWC, the DEP, and the soil and water districts will evaluate the applications. These will be done, these are kind of going to be science-based applications, and it's not willy-nilly just get in there and haul things out. They will be carefully considered. Applications will be taken at any time, and the applicants will be responsible for all permits. I do have a few copies of those rules, program rules here today, if anybody is interested in looking at those more closely.
We have to wrap up.
Okay. This is our board of directors. 12 of them are locally elected officials. Marty is on our board. They represent you, our member municipalities, and this is what it's all about. Water and our communities. So I thank you very much for your time and attention, and if anyone would like a copy of this presentation, I did bring a few of those too.
Jeffrey Haber and Michael Keneally from New York State Association of Towns. I want to thank you for making the trip. Everyone wants to thank you for making the trip out to the Catskills. I've had the opportunity to work with Mike on what was a rather interesting, earlier I spoke about regional cooperation, and we're speaking about it throughout the day between a few municipalities. Mike and I worked on a project between several states, those being the ones who have the Great Lakes as part of their borders. So that was rather interesting, Mike and Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter and Alan, for the invitation to come down here. It was a nice ride down. My son, who was here in the area about a month ago, I said, well, I'm going to leave about an hour and a half for this trip. And he said, well, let me tell you, I was down there, and if you get behind a truck on 28, it's going to take you longer than an hour and a half. So Mike and I called Mike last night, and we left early, and we've been here, and we had no trucks, and we were here, what, hour and a half?
About, yeah.
Hour 45 minutes, so it was a good, and that wasn't speeding. Much. Anyway, it's a pleasure to be down here, and how many of you are there, I should say, is there anyone in the room who is a newly elected who hasn't been in town office and will be for the first time in January? Okay. Few of you, good. The rest of you, I think, probably are somewhat familiar with the association, but let me go through and tell you a little bit about the Association of Towns. We were formed in 1933 as an advocate for town government, and our mission statement was to promote efficiency and economy in town government. And the membership of our association is unique in the fact that the town is the membership, not any individuals. So by virtue of a resolution that your town passes, you become a member for the year. And that entitles every officer of the town to be able to call or write or fax or email the association asking for any technical assistance, advice, any question you want to ask. And we are dedicated to serving all the members of the association, which comprises last year I think 907 of the 932 towns, and we generally run about that membership every year. There's 932 towns, as I mentioned, in New York State, and they range in size from Hempstead, which is the second largest municipality in New York State with 750,000 people, to the town of Red House in Cattaraugus County with 38 people. And you know, the structure of town government is the same for every town, basically. So it's quite interesting and diverse membership that we have, and we've been able through the years to serve those members pretty well, I think. And I encourage you to use us. If your town belongs and is a member, you should be calling us with issues that come before you that you need advice on. You know, we have 5 lawyers on staff, 3 full-time attorneys and 2 part-time attorneys. Actually, we lost one of our full-time attorneys, so we're 2 and 2 right now. But they have a vast experience. Lori Mithen is our counsel. Mike is her first deputy, associate counsel. And we have 2 retired fellows. Murray Jarros, who was with the association for a long, long time, is recognized as probably one of the most qualified municipal attorneys in New York State. And Jim Cole, who retired from the Attorney General's office, where he handled municipal affairs and opinions from the Attorney General's office. So there's quite a staff on hand to help you, and I really do encourage you to call, because that's what your membership is for, and you're not bothering us. We want the calls. Mike already only gets.
I especially want you to call, because that's what keeps me employed. So.
Right, right.
You guys
if
keep
you
those
stop
questions
calling,
coming,
I have nothing for Mike to do except ride around. Anyway, a little bit of what the association does. We do provide the legal services, as I just said, and encourage you to call. And the legal staff also, we spend a lot of time discussing the policies of the associated reaction to what's happening at the state and federal level and how it affects town government in New York State. And that leads to the legal advocacy that we do, the lobbying advocacy that we do for towns. Now, I'll be honest with you and tell you that lobbying today is not like lobbying was 25, 30 years ago, when so many of the state legislators evolved from local officials, and they were maybe town supervisors or clerks or something, and they became assemblymen or assemblywomen or state senators, and so they had a feeling and an appreciation for local government. That's not so much the way it is today, because so many of them have never served at a local level, and quite honestly, they don't understand local government. So our task has been made much more difficult. And from the lobbying perspective, we don't have PACs and we don't buy tickets to functions. We appeal to them on a philosophical basis, and we meet and discuss, and we testify at hearings. And I think that probably the 2 most significant things in recent memory that I can mention to you is probably the activity that we undertook with the Spitzer Commission when it decided that it was going to consolidate local governments without any regard to the impact of consolidation, and quite honestly without any understanding of local government and what was going to happen if they suddenly decided we didn't need towns anymore and everything was going to be run at a regional level or a county level. They really had no understanding of the impact. And I'm happy to say, I don't often brag about what we do, but I will brag about the fact that some people in Albany who had been through various reincarnations of the consolidations efforts of various governors didn't take this real serious. But we at the Association of Towns saw, first of all, the makeup of the commission and realized that we didn't have any real friends on that commission, and that we needed to take an active role, and we did. We really ramped up our efforts. We participated in all of those hearings. We became loudmouth advocates, and I was actually called a dinosaur for my beliefs in about home rule and local government and things like that by one of the members of the commission. But happy to say, for the most part, we prevailed on those issues. And the tax cap legislation last year was another issue in the same venue, same way. There was no doubt that the politics of the matter was such that there was going to be a tax cap imposed. The Republicans were for it, the Democrats were for it, everybody was going to do it. The governor had a plan that he put forth that everybody just seemed to just want to endorse and get it over with. And one of the provisions in that tax cap legislation was that in order to override the tax cap, you would have to do a public referendum in your town, and 60% of the people voting in that referendum would have to approve the tax override in order for your budget to include a cap above the 2%. Well, you know, I've been a town supervisor, and I know, as you probably do, that if you ask the people in your town to 60% of them to allow you to go above 2%, however well-intentioned that budget appropriation might be, that's not going to work. So we really worked hard. Lori Mithen, the council, and I, and Mike McNulty, who we retained as an advocate. Some people would call a lobbyist. I prefer the term advocate. Mike was a former town supervisor of the town of Green Island, and a former congressman and a former assemblyman in Albany. And Mike and Lori and I virtually camped out last legislative session in the Capitol. We got to see people that had the real input into this, and we were successful. And I can honestly stand before you and say that if it was not for the Association of Towns, that 60% provision would not have been changed, and now it's down to where the language is 60% of the town board, which is 3 out of 5. We even got it, we actually got it down below the supermajority, which we probably would have settled for 4 out of 5, but we got it down to 3 out of 5. And that's made it easier for those of you who have legitimate reasons, and there are many legitimate reasons, and the tragedies that hit here with the floods and everything are a perfect example of why your town budgets can't be realistically limited to 2% a year. And so if you have a bad snow year, you have storms like that or whatever else, you're going to go above 2%. There's no question about it. And that's being responsible to your people. And so that was able to be accomplished for those of you that might have done it this year, because we got that legislation to read 3 out of 5 instead of going to a public referendum requiring 60% of the people. So I'm quite happy about that, and I think that's a good justification for you know, your membership in the association. Education and training is the big thing that we do. I've said for a number of years that the lobbying aspect of the association has always been important, but it hasn't been what we really do. What we really do is educate and train town officials, not only by being able to call Mike, but by the various training efforts that we put on throughout the year. Of course, we have the first thing coming up this year is a school for newly electeds. There'll be one held in Albany and one held in Rochester. The first week in January it's in Rochester. I think the second week in January it's in Albany. And I would encourage all the newly electeds to go, and any of you who have been in office for a while that might want to go. Those registration forms are in the magazine that is included with the material that Mike passed out. It's very informative. It gives you a good basics on how to run town board meetings, what you're going to face as a town supervisor or a town board member, your responsibilities, and any questions that you might want to ask at that time, you'll have the opportunity to. The other thing that we do is, of course, our big annual meeting. Now, I understand, you know, that through the years it has become difficult for a lot of you to attend the annual meeting, basically because of the perception and pressure that you might get at town board meetings for making an expenditure to go to New York City. I can honestly stand here and tell you that with the room rates that we've negotiated, that having this conference in New York City is no more expensive than if we had it any other place in the state. If you double up in a room, which we always, when I was a town official, that was the way you had to do it. The supervisor got his own room, everybody else had to double up. And if you double up, you know, you can go to New York City for $115 a night, which is, you know, as good as the Super 8 alongside the Thruway in Amsterdam. You know, so it's not that much money. You can eat in New York City as you see fit. Some people want to have a $100 meal at the top of the world in the Pond Restaurant. You can do that. If you want to eat for $15, $20 in New York City dinner, you can do that. It's just a matter of how you want to go. But what we offer down there is unique in two ways. Number one, we have a program dealing with every aspect of town government. And secondly, you get to meet and interact with people from all over the state who are dealing with some of the same issues that you are. And I know that networking is a word that's overworked these days, overused, but actually, when I was a town board member, some of the information, some of the best information I got was from being someplace and talking to a councilman from someplace in Broome County or something, and they had a similar issue to what we were going to face that year in my town. So I did an article for those of you that have been around and might actually read the column that I put in the magazine about 2 or 3 years ago that essentially said that you can go to New York City and go to the annual meeting, and it won't cost a household in your town any more than a cup of coffee. And I think that, you know, regardless of what the total amount might look like, if your residents aren't willing to buy you a cup of coffee so that you can become more knowledgeable and expert in how to run your town, then it's the residents' loss. But I'll move off of that soapbox. But I will tell you that, you know, just this year, just a couple of the topics that we're going to be offering down there are things about collective bargaining for those towns. You know, you have unions, shared services, consolidations, dissolutions, funding municipal projects, municipal court audits, IRS current development payroll issues, economic development, the new councils, how to survive a RLUIPA investigation, which isn't very important until you undergo one. As I sit on the planning board at home, and we made what we thought was a reasonable decision on something, and all of a sudden we're getting phone calls from Washington, D.C. Because the people who didn't get their way were pursuing it under RLUIPA. And there's a lot of planning issues on the agenda, and highway department stuff, disaster response and recovery, an article, a program on wetlands remapping, which is a big thing this year, and how to handle crowds that pop up, like these flash mobs and things like that. They're all issues that some of you face, some of you don't face. What we try to do in the agenda that we have for New York City is to provide a number of topics that will be relevant to whatever size town you are. Obviously, the big towns, 50, 60, 70,000 people, or Hempstead, aren't going to be dealing with some of the same issues that you folks are dealing with. But we try to have the program balanced so that they get topics that are relevant to them and you get topics that are relevant to you. So I encourage you to go. If you can't send 5 people, send 1 person from your town. And I see people like to smile when I say 5 people, but I'll tell you, back in the day, as they say, when I was a town board member, we sent 10 people to New York City. And planning board members and town board members and clerks and justices. and everybody. So it's well worth it. It seems like a big lump sum expenditure, but it's really well worth it. And the last two things that I'll mention is the two insurance companies that the Association of Towns sponsors. We sponsor NYMER, and I don't know, I presume some people in this room have their property and casualty insurance covered by NYMER. NYMER is a licensed property and casualty insurance company, licensed by the New York State Insurance Department. It was formed as a result in probably, maybe some of you were around, but I'm going to guess not. In 1986, the private insurance industry created a crisis for municipal governments. They decided essentially not to write them. They had decided that they were bad risks. And so as a result of that, the Association of Towns and the Conference of Mayors and the Association of Counties, the three executive directors at that time, of which I was one, got together and decided we have to do something about this. So we created the New York Municipal Insurance Reciprocal. And what that is a property and casualty company that provides the insurance for your town or a village or a county, and you are the owners of that company. Not the associations, but the municipalities that subscribe to this reciprocal actually own it. There's a board of governors made up of municipal officials, and they make the important decisions. It's administered by a third-party administrator, Right Risk Management, and sponsored by the three municipal associations who serve as what's known as the attorney-in-fact. We have a separate nonprofit corporation comprised of the three associations, and we enter into all the contractual obligations of this reciprocal. That's our role in that. We sponsor that. We have 612 or 618 members in that reciprocal now. We started we got our license in 1993 with 26 municipalities, and we're now the largest in number insurer of municipalities in New York State. I wouldn't say we're the largest in premium because some of the really big ones, like well, New York City self-insured, but some of the bigger cities and some of the big may not belong, and somebody else may have a bigger total dollar premium, but we insure the most of the municipalities in New York State on a numerical basis. Retention is very good. We're not always the cheapest, but we're the best. And your interests are well represented by this insurance company and the fact that the municipal associations are looking out for you. The second insurance company that we have is was solely created and remains solely operated or sponsored by the Association of Towns, and that's called the Comp Alliance. And that's a workers' compensation company. And we provide workers' comp to any municipality and fire districts in New York State. Some water districts were defined by law as to those things that we can't cover, which Mike understands much more than I do. I just say, let's write this, and he goes, well, I don't think we can. But anyway, that compensation insurance company has gone from about 15 when we began it to about 230 municipalities in New York State right now. And once again, it's we're in that for the long haul. Workers' comp rates, are basically the result of your experience. When you come up with a quote for workers' comp, you look at a payroll of a municipality. What type of jobs do they have? Certain jobs require a higher charge than other jobs. But the big item is the experience. And if you have a good loss experience, haven't had a lot of losses, it results in a low premium. What we do and what we concentrate on more than our competitors is a good risk management program. We will come in and look at your municipality and make recommendations to you to cut down on your losses. So I would ask you that when it comes time for the renewal of your property and casualty company and your workers' comp insurance, if you have not, if you're not a member now, that you call and ask for a quote and see if we can't do better than what you're doing, or if not better in price, better in service, because that's what we pride ourselves on. I think that's a quick overview of what the association does. We're here to, we are really here, our existence is based on the fact that we're here for you, and you can't bother us too much. You know, I'll admit there's sometimes there are a particular person that might call with some always off the wall, maybe Mike might think ridiculous question or something like that, but that doesn't that's not what, you know, that doesn't happen. Well, there is no question, first of all, that is too ridiculous to ask, because I was a part-time guy when I started, before I was supervisor. Most of the supervisors and board members in New York State are part-time people. You're not expected to have the expertise about everything that comes before you, or the nuances of issues that come before you, and we're here to help you through that. And we want you to call and use us, and we respect one thing that I do, and I tell the staff, we don't get ourselves in positions where when we get a call from a newspaper, you know, such and such is going on in this town, and the supervisor said this, and blah blah blah, and what's your, you know, what's the, we don't throw people under the bus. If somebody calls, if a newspaper calls with a question, let's say about the tax cap legislation, or do you know how many towns have overridden it? Well, if we know how many towns have overridden it, we would tell them that, but we wouldn't get into the fact, you know, that the town of Andes has overridden the tax cap, and what do you think about it? Well, I think they did the right thing. They did what they felt was the right thing. That's our approach to that, and so you could feel confident that when you talk to us, we're not going to throw you under the bus if a newspaper reporter should call subsequently and say, what do you think about that action? And conversely, we run into every once in a while where some official will say, without calling us, to justify his position, well, I talked to the Association of Towns and they said this. And that's kind of difficult when we know the position that they took was contrary to law, and we didn't tell them that. But that doesn't happen really too often. But I just encourage you to use us. That's what we're here for. I'm glad to have made the trip down here. I'm happy to be invited, and if you have any questions that I can, my time's about up, but if you have any questions that I can handle right now while I'm here, please go.
We'll take them at the panel.
We'll take them at the panel, and the panel's going to be after lunch, is it?
Yes.
Okay, great. See you then. Thank you very much.